Guardians, roaming super builds are trending, and for good reason. Bungie recently buffed the rate at which you gain back your super from dealing damage. With this change alone, you'll be getting your super back in no time. So today, I've put together 3 of my favorite Warlock builds that use roaming supers. They'll offer you a ton of ad clearing potential, a ton of survivability, and even some good boss damage. Okay, maybe not that one. Without further ado, let's get right on into it. First up, we have a build that I feel truly embodies what it means to be a Warlock. With the Solar subclass, we have the Daybreak roaming super. Because of that, I can't think of a better exotic than Dawn Chorus. This makes your Daybreak projectiles deal 90% more damage and apply 30 Scorch. And the other part is that this Scorch will now deal 200% more damage, and it'll give back 5% melee energy per tick. Since Scorch will be dealing more damage and giving back melee energy, the first thing we want to do is to bring Ember of Ashes. That way we can apply more Scorch stacks per instance. On our super, this means projectiles will now ignite in 3 hits instead of 4. And for other occurrences like Incandescent or Incinerator Snap, we'll be applying more Scorch stacks, leading to more damage and more melee energy in the process. And I love Solar for its pure survivability, which is why we bring the Healing Grenade, paired with Touch of Flame to consistently get Restoration ×2. To ensure we have Restoration active nearly all the time, I like to also bring Ember of Empyrean. That way I can use Solar weapons and ability kills to extend our restoration. And that's also why I'm bringing Hellion. That way we can pop our Phoenix Dive and gain a Solar buddy at our side that will continuously scorch targets and get more kills, extending our restoration. While some might like Icarus Dash for movement or Heat Rises for melee energy, Hellion is the best for my playstyle, giving you another way to constantly scorch enemies and getting extra kills to keep our restoration timer high. And this also means in group content you can bring Ember of Benevolence to rapidly gain back all of your abilities by applying Cure or Restoration to teammates. But I find that Ember of Singeing is the most consistent. That way you can gain back your Phoenix Dive at an increased 400% rate to constantly have a Solar buddy at your side. And what's the flow for this build? Well, the best thing to do is to get your restoration going. You can pop your Phoenix Dive to create a Solar buddy, then throw your Healing Grenade at your feet and immediately use your weapons or melee to extend the restoration that it provides. Then continuously use your primary weapon and popping any of your abilities whenever you get them back, besides your grenade. Save that until your restoration runs out. And you can use your super for either ad clearing or boss damage since you get it back so quickly. And when it comes to improving the build, for stats I shoot for 100 in resilience. Then I go for about 100 in discipline and around 70 in recovery, so that we can have a low cooldown on both our grenade and our class ability. I also like to bring around 30 intellect since that is the baseline for most stats, but that part isn't super necessary. And when it comes to our weapons, we want to bring a Solar primary and a Solar heavy weapon to make the most of our weapon surge. Any primary weapon with Incandescent is the best option since it'll help you proc more Scorch for more damage and melee energy. But my guilty pleasure is to bring the Parasite. In between uses of the Parasite, we end up taking out a ton of enemies, making it so that every time we use it, we get a ton of burst damage. And this is also really good for bosses, since you can dump your Parasite and then immediately use your super to deal some good burst and total damage. And for the artifact, this season isn't really about Solar, so the best we have are the Grenade Launcher perks if you plan on bringing a Grenade Launcher. And you can also bring Curative Orbs to create more overall orbs by breaking shields for the first time. With easy access to Restoration ×2, our survivability is incredibly high. We cause a ton of ignitions and get our super back pretty quick, leading to a ton of ad clearing potential and damage. This build is a ton of fun in activities like Contest of Elders or Onslaught, so definitely give it a whirl. And if you're enjoying the video, remember to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this in the future. For the second build, I wanted to take a stab at a Nova Warp build, so this means we landed back on the Void subclass. And I'm gonna keep it real, I haven't used Nova Warp since it launched, so I can say I was both happy and wanting more from this build, but let me explain. Nova Warp can deal some decent damage to bosses, but it honestly doesn't really feel worth it. So the main idea is to use it on champions, mini bosses, and ad clearing. That way you can save your heavy ammo for bosses. The main issue that I have with this is that this build already feels really strong in the ad clearing department, and that's because we bring the exotic gauntlets Contraverse Hold paired with Chaos Accelerant and the Vortex Grenade. That way we can hold down our grenade button to charge it up, and when released, it deals more damage in a larger radius and even increases our grenade recharge by a whopping 2000% for a brief period. I found that this meant I consistently got back about 40% of my grenade and occasionally got back 90 to 100% depending on the enemies that were around. In the off chance that I got the 40%, I could still kill with my weapons, which will benefit from the Enhanced Devour, fully healing me but also giving back at least 15% energy per kill and up to 40% at max. This made it feel like that I had a super powerful powerful grenade so often that I sometimes forgot to use it. The great thing is that when paired with Echo of Instability, our grenade kills will now give our void weapons volatile rounds for more damage, meaning that these volatile rounds should be active nearly constantly. Between constantly having your super powerful grenade, volatile rounds, and void weapon surge, you have a ton of ad clearing potential from this alone. So what's the flow for this build? Well, the best thing to do is to start each encounter by getting a grenade kill. That way you can proc Devour. Then I found that since we don't have a ton of damage resistance, I can use my Nova Warp to save my life. Though keep in mind that you do need to get a kill in order to heal, so you still can die. And when it comes to improving the build for stats, I shoot for 100 in resilience and discipline. Then I'm aiming for as much recovery as possible while still maintaining that 30 intellect. As for weapons, we're bringing a Void primary and a Void heavy weapon to fully take advantage of volatile rounds and Void weapon surge. Any Void weapon will work in the primary slot, but I really like to take the Graviton Lance if you don't mind using an exotic in this slot. But any Void primary with Repulsor Brace is a big plus, since it means you'll have more times proccing a Void Overshield for more health, but also 70% damage resistance. And for that heavy slot, Edge Transit is the best DPS weapon to bring. But I was also having a ton of fun with the Hammerhead machine gun. With perks like Rampage and Killing Tally, paired with volatile rounds, this thing absolutely shreds. As for the artifact, we do have a couple that we want to bring. As usual, we want to bring our grenade launcher perks, mainly concussive reload so that we can weaken bosses. But if you are also using a heavy grenade launcher like Edge Transit, kinetic impacts will also be good for adding in more overall damage. And then I like to take curative orbs and I like to boost it with a tonic. Now we create an orb whenever we break a shield for the first time. And whenever we pick up any orb, we get a boost of health, which will end up helping with our overall survivability. While I don't think this build is Grandmaster worthy, it is a ton of fun and really good in those ad dense environments like Onslaught or Tomb of Elders. And the final build on the list is a build that actually broke the game. Winter's Wrath is kinda garbage on its own, but with Ballidor's Wrath, it can now deal 150% increased shatter damage. For some reason, this buff had some weird interactions with weapons that deal high damage instances per second, like Anarchy or Thunderlord, leading to people one-shotting bosses. So for now, this exotic is disabled. Until it's back, I have a backup build that I will be using. I'm bringing a class exotic with Spirit of Inmost Light for the extra ability energy, but the main components of this build come from the rest of it. I'm bringing either Kvastov or Outbreak Perfected, paired with Facet of Grace. That way, when we get kills with kinetic weapons, we get bonus Transcendent energy, and the fastest way to gain back your super is to deal damage with a primary weapon, which is why we're bringing an exotic primary. This means that in the downtime after using our super, we can instead pop our Transcendence for more weapon damage, but also survivability. And to compound on our survivability, I'm bringing Facet of Purpose to gain stacks of frost armor by picking up orbs, Facet of Protection to gain more damage resistance while surrounded, and Feed the Void so that after getting an ability kill, we have an enhanced version of Devour that will fully heal us on kills. To top it all off, we bring Facet of Dawn for an extra 25% weapon damage, and in turn, more super regeneration. And then we also bring Facet of Ruin so that our super will deal extra shatter damage, which will only compound with Baldur's Wrath when it's back. And what's the flow for this build? Well, the main thing to keep in mind is that you want Devour active all the time. So start by getting an ability kill. That could be with your grenade, melee, or even your solar buddy. Then simply use your primary weapon. Whenever you get your super back, use it to clear out a ton of enemies. Then when your super runs out, use your Transcendence to gain back that super even quicker. Pretty simple, but very effective. And when it comes to improving the build, for stats, I shoot for 100 in resilience. Then I aim for about 100 discipline and about 60 to 70 strength. Again, trying to make sure I'm keeping that baseline of 30 intellect. As for the weapons, the most important thing is to bring a hard-hitting primary weapon. Outbreak Perfected is incredibly strong for dealing a ton of damage to single targets, whereas Kvastov is better for taking out multiple enemies, but both are good options for getting that super back. For a backup weapon, I like a grenade launcher for good boss damage, and then I like to either bring a rocket-assisted sidearm or an area denial grenade launcher as a secondary weapon. As for the artifact, we do have a couple that we want to bring. This season, Hail the Storm is the best perk. You want to make sure you have a tonic so that you can boost it, which will give you even more stacking shatter damage. Then we bring our grenade launcher perks, the main one being concussive reload to have a way to weaken bosses. And then if you are bringing a grenade launcher for boss DPS, you also want to bring kinetic impacts to deal even more damage with your heavy grenade launcher. And I also like to bring our compounding in case my teammates are causing any blind on bosses. That way our storm grenades will deal even more damage. And you can also bring curative orbs to help create more overall orbs and get your super back even quicker. While I can't show off the build that I wanted into with Ballidore's Wrath, this build is a very strong substitute if you're wanting to use that stasis super. And a bonus for all of you that have watched this far, I have a Crown of Tempest build that can easily get back your super in 30 seconds. If you want to see a more in-depth look on that build, go check out this video here. And there you have it, Guardians. We've covered 3 roaming super Warlock builds that allow you to use your super constantly. Keep an eye out for next week's video where I'll be going over 3 Hunter builds that can do the same thing. But if you want to see 3 Titan builds that also use a roaming super, then go check out this video here. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and comment down below on what builds you've been enjoying most for Warlocks. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.